Welcome back. President Biden delivering his second State of the Union address last night. Joining us right now to talk more about the top takeaways is the president of Maslansky and Partners. She's the author of Persuasion. Lee Carter is here. Also, the Harris Poll chairman, Mark Penn, with us as well. Mark, great to see you. Thank you so much for being here. Lee, always a pleasure. Thanks very much for being here. Let's talk about your takeaways, Lee. First, let's talk Biden on inflation. Here he is last night. Watch.
Inflation has been a global problem because the pandemic disrupted our supply chains, and Putin's unfair and brutal war in Ukraine disrupted energy supplies as well as food supplies, blocking all that grain in Ukraine. But we're better positioned than any country on earth right now. Here at home, gas prices are down $1.50 from their peak. Food inflation is coming down, not fast enough, but coming down. Inflation has fallen every month for the last 6 months. While take-home pay has gone up.
So, Lee Carter, we saw the lines there. What was that telling us?
So that was telling you voter reactions. The blue line was the Democrats, and that wasn't surprising. It was pretty high, though not as high as you would expect. They gave them overall about a B. But when you saw the yellow line, that's the independent line, red Republican line. What we saw last night was independents really rejected a lot of what he said. One voter said, you should never let the facts get in the way of a good story. When he talked about inflation, what they were saying is that is not my reality. You are living in a completely different place than I am. I feel inflation acutely. You're trying to say it's better than it is, and I just don't buy it. And nothing kills trust faster than a contradiction, and that's what happened when you look at how the independents voted last night.
Mark, what do you say? How was the speech, and what can you tell us about how voters reacted?
Well, I think the speech was clearly the opening of his presidential reelection campaign and meant to be his rallying cry. Look, I think the speech was a B speech in the sense that I think it had lots of red meat for Democrats. But for independents and Republicans, it ignored inflation, that there was a border crisis, that there was a crime wave across the country. It really left out so many of the main problems that people wanted to see addressed. It even left out Iran or Israel and kind of took a drive-by on China and Russia in the most modest ways. So I think there was a lot here that was lacking. It was really meant to ring the bells with Democrats with a little bit of cover for let's have bipartisanship. But I think most people saw that as not genuine.
I mean, it was total fiction to say we acted tough on China, Lee. I mean, come on. I mean, we just had a spy balloon travel the country and potentially get nuclear secrets.
Well, that's what the voters said. When they saw what he said about China, they said he sounded stronger than he behaved. He let it go way too far. He talked about it as if he really made this huge victory, and most people are very concerned about what happened and weren't really clear on what he was saying and what he had accomplished in China when he was trying to tout his accomplishments there.
Mark?
Yeah, look, I think that considering a major event had occurred with China, we're in the middle of a war with Russia. We're the war with the Ukraine and Russia, in which we're supporting the Ukraine. And as I said, what about the Mideast? What about Iran?
Yeah.
What about terrorism?
How about Afghanistan?
From a commander-in-chief foreign policy point of view. And of course, there was no Afghanistan in this speech.
No Afghanistan at all.
To even mention it.
13 service members are dead, Joe Contra.
That's correct. And Mark, I'm curious to get your thoughts on this. I spoke with Lee a little bit in the green room before. Because the bar is so low on Biden in terms of his ability to perform, particularly for an extended period of time, is the fact that he just got through the speech and yelled a lot, therefore showing passion, I guess, a reason why so many in the media are calling this a very good to great speech? I mean, we see the Washington Post, their headline, Biden in the State of the Union mixes bipartisanship with defiance. NBC News, Biden flexes his dexterity at the State of the Union. So it's because the bar is so low that people think Biden performed so well?
Well, expectations were low. Look, I've labeled him the angry optimist in this speech. One minute he says, hey, it's all bipartisanship, hope, and the next minute he's waving a finger and yelling and screaming something about, international leaders. And so he's genuinely an angry optimist opting for big government solutions in this speech. It was the opposite of the big government, the end of big government. And I do think, though, on performance, as you said, expectations are so low. He's been so closeted. He came out strong, and people say, you know what? He's there. He might have missed who the majority and minority leader was. He might have slurred words. But overall, I think he'll get that part of the speech, that he was strong and can get up there and do a campaign. The question is a campaign about what?
Yeah.
And that's where things really fell apart in this speech.
Kayleigh, I want to get to you in a second, but real quickly, take us through the lines on Biden on the economy.
So on the economy, overall, people just felt he was really divorced from reality. They said independents and Republicans really had a hard time with what he said. Democrats, again, they said it was okay, but not good enough.
Yeah, final word, Kayleigh.
The AP had a really telling poll that found that only 20% of Americans across both political parties want Biden to run again in 2024. How do we match that with what we saw last night?
Well, I think he made a really clear play last night to say, you know, the fight's not over. We're still in it, and he's going to run again. And the question is, who else would there be? I'm not sure that the Democrats have an answer for that, and nobody can really stay on as long as he's in the game.
Lee, great to see you. Mark, always a pleasure. Thank you, Lee Carter, Mark Penn, Kayleigh McGee, White. Thanks for being here this morning. We will see you soon.